All right, so episode 3 of Exorcast. Almost as many episodes in as years we've been gone. Fellas, how you
Almost
doing?
there. We're doing good.
Yep. Yeah, the stuff you can't see on YouTube about getting yanked these days, it's on the rise around my area again, apparently.
Oh yeah?
Yeah,
hmm
I would be surprised if the state don't end up on lockdown again eventually, but it'd have to get real bad because our governor's an idiot. So sad that. Also,
That's pretty much the way it is most places now. They'd have to really get bad.
Yeah, our governor's an idiot as well. He did really good at the start of the lockdown and locked us down before other states. I
yeah,
think we only had one positive case by the time we went on lockdown. But he's still an idiot.
ours was pretty well forced into it because it just got so bad. I guess people were kind of like, "What are you doing?" And now I think it's getting back that bad again.
We just had an outbreak in a church down south, so
Uh,
that's fun.
Well, we had an outbreak at a funeral
there
around
you
here,
go.
so
We've been going down pretty consistently. He's been phased opening slowly. This is why I have shorter hair. Um, but at the same time, I mean, I know we're kind of one of the luckier states in that way.
Right. So we're going to definitely try and keep these episodes shorter. We're still filming back to back, but we're not going hour long anymore per episode. So
Correct.
there's at least that.
hmm
Um, James, any news?
There's sale, there's sex, and the one that everybody basically knew they were doing, which was Daemonia. They also announced new shirts that they're going to be selling, which would be, I think, a Daemonia shirt. There's a new design for VIY. They're all coming from Paul Bearer Press, the new shirts. That and the other one that surprised the hell out of me was Unearthed Films got hold of a Hong Kong Cat 3 movie called The Untold Story. The Category 3 movies are pretty darn hardcore for Hong Kong. It's movies like Bola Syndrome and things like that. It's already, if Unearthed's got it, it's going to be pretty crazy. But I'm surprised they went and got that. I'm glad at least it's coming back into print. I haven't seen it, but I've heard of it. Its reputation precedes it, at least with what I know of it anyway.
well, I hope they release the Ebola syndrome eventually because I didn't know that was even part of that, but I've got the old DVD of that and I like that one.
Same here.
I don't think I've ever seen any of it.
It's pretty good. I'd heard the title, like the Cat 3 or whatever thing before,
hmm
but I wasn't
Yeah.
really sure what it was. So how many movies do you have any idea how many movies they've made?
Oh, I
Under
have
that
no
name?
idea. I think a government, like, I wouldn't say it's video nasties. Like, it's more of a governmental classification, though.
Oh,
I know of three off the top of my head, which would be Untold Story, Ebola Syndrome, and there's one called Red to Kill that I've heard of. But that's all I've really heard of this of like the classification.
I, I see where Unearthed also announced I think they said they got 16 hours of extras for their live feed Blu-ray when it comes out.
Hmm.
Which I'm looking forward to all those Ryan Nicholson Blu-rays. I've only got Famine so far. Gutterballs is out right now, but of course, the shutdown stopped me from getting it right now. But eventually it's coming, and I hope to get them all because when I found out they were putting out all that stuff on Blu-ray, I kind of got rid of a lot of my old DVDs. So a lot of them I have to get now.
I was thinking about picking up the Gutterballs Blu-ray because it's on that Amazon sale, 2 for 1 that's going on right now.
There's a 2-disc version though. I don't know if it's out yet. It should be, I guess.
Pop up on a few places. Otherwise, Scream Factory, they've announced like special features for 13 Ghosts, a few other things like that. So,
No interest in it, man. You know what? I've only
oh
seen the movie
come on,
once.
it's a great remake. It's amazing. It's a great remake. So
Yeah, you'd be
underrated.
amazed how many people love that movie. And I don't know. I seen it one time when it came on DVD years ago. So I'm holding judgment until I get to re-see it because I don't remember a whole lot about it.
It's a very early 2000s horror movie in terms of like jump scares and stuff, but it's got really good practical stuff for the makeup and all. And if you're gonna remake a William Castle movie, and go as far away from it really as you can and kind of trying to modernize it. They did pretty well on that front.
I'll give them that.
I think that's pretty much everything I got. At least that we're going to talk about.
The Severin Demonia shirt's pretty awesome.
Yes, it is.
I've not
Kind of
seen
like
that
the
movie. That's one
DIY
of the-
one, too.
That's one of the Fulci movies I've not seen.
Oh, they also announced F is for Fake. Isn't there Fulci is for Fake since we last recorded?
Fulci
Something
is for
like that.
fake, yeah.
And what is that?
It's a
It's like a biopic, but not. It's like a documentary, but not.
yeah.
Like some actors playing Fulci, but they're also interviewing his daughter.
I
know,
think
so it's
Fulci's
like
I think there's actually an interview with Fulci in it too.
Probably.
Well, I'm down for anything Fulci. So
I'll probably pick that up on the Severin sale.
Don't know. Look, you're the one who bought, what, 15 things from the Vinegar Syndrome sale, and I bought 3?
I bought exactly
Not that I'm
15 things from the Vinegar sale. You asked me.
That was a guess. But no, that being said, I'm not judging you for that. It's just I prefer to kind of keep it simple.
well, I
more power
don't
to you,
I don't
man.
like ordering from their stuff because then that robs me of meeting James from Vinegar Syndrome and talking to him and buying the stuff I still need to get when they come to Days of the Dead in Atlanta. Although who knows if we'll ever have a convention again, right?
Give them a year or two. There'll be one eventually. Just don't go to one this year if they hold one.
Well, there's supposed to be one in August in Atlanta again. I don't know if that's still going to be happening or not. The controversial Soska sisters are supposed to be there.
I'd cosplay in a biosuit.
You
I don't know.
wouldn't
if
be the
I'll
only
go.
one.
I really don't think they'll have it. Really.
I'd hope not.
I mean, my home county's having a fair in a couple of months, though. So
I believe it.
Maybe.
All right. Well, first, well, actually, the only thing we're going to review on this episode is I don't even know if it's really a review, but we're going to talk about the Mark Patton documentary, Scream Queen, My Nightmare on Elm Street, correct? Is that the title?
Yeah, we're doing this, and our next episode's kind of I admit it was my idea. We're kind of doing it for Pride Month, this one and the next episode.
Totally cool.
But yeah, that's the name. Mm-hmm.
I'm happy to share my birthday with Pride Month.
Absolutely.
But yeah, so Scream Queen. And you know what? Until I actually watched it, I didn't realize it was Scream, Queen.
Wordplay.
Yeah. But I met him at Days of the Dead, Indianapolis. I think it was one of the first conventions he had done.
Mm.
And there was like a brief shot of that show there. No, it was Horror Hound in Indiana. That's what it was. But I was looking for my wife and I and Dance Commander and his sister and a couple other people in the crowd, but I didn't see any of us.
I met him right about the same time because he had literally just started doing conventions when Never Sleep Again came out, and they had to go and find him, which comes up in the doc. I met him at Monster Mania in Jersey in 2010. So just like you, very very early on in the time when he found out that he had a fan base.
Yeah. He was
Which
nice.
blows my mind that
He
he
talked to
didn't
us for a while.
Very nice guy.
He and I asked my wife and she couldn't remember. So I had to contact the Dance Commander's sister. But he was flirting with Dance Commander a little bit. I got the confirmation.
That's the one where Dance Commander almost killed somebody.
No, that was a few years later, and that person he almost killed was Robert Englund.
It all connects. It all connects.
Exactly.
He was in line to meet Catherine Isabel,
Who is also very nice.
Yeah, and they had it was like in one of the big banquet rooms. Like they had their own rooms. It was just them, and in the next room over, it was Robert. But they had a door, like a wall divider. It didn't go all the way to the ceiling. It was on rollers, so they just kind of wheeled it out and separated the rooms. and he leaned up against it and almost knocked it over, and it literally would have fallen right on top of Robert Englund's head.
Imagine that.
Luckily, I had already met him. He hadn't the weekend. She had to get tickets and wait your turn in line. So many ticket
That's
people.
how Robert Englund works.
Yeah. So we had already met him, but him and his sister hadn't. So he almost killed him before we got to meet him.
I got a sunburn before I met him, but that was just because they had to have the line go outside.
Yeah.
But actually, one of the things I really like about the documentary is the beginning, where you kind of see what a nice guy is, because he talks about what he believes about conventions, and he talks about the idea that there are people here. He said he's had someone come up to him and tell him that if he had the choice between meeting Brad Pitt or meeting him, they would have picked him. And he said,
Right.
These people, you only see them like for a minute, and in that minute you can destroy everything. So it's important to be honest and to be professional, and there are people at conventions who should learn that,
Absolutely.
and he knows that.
There are some shitty actors and actresses at conventions.
Linda Blair. Linda Blair.
I've not met Linda Blair. I didn't realize. I mean, obviously, there's no way for me to tell, but he was in Broadway with Cher, and he fucking kissed David Bowie. That's cool.
Yeah.
David Bowie's one of my fucking idols. I love David Bowie.
Yeah.
One of the
he's lived
things
a
I
cool
got out of
life.
it was, this thing. Half the thing that makes the movie great is his own life, because I told my wife afterwards, she said, "What did you get out of it?" And I said, I didn't know anything apart from that he had the movie version of that play that he was in. I didn't know it was a play to start with, and he just explains, his childhood and the way his family was, talks about his plays, very well rounded. And, it also gives you a really, really good picture of what Hollywood was like in the 80s.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we cut back to all the movies and stuff. It had the bad word we shall not say was openly said on everything back then.
Mm-hmm.
It was all the way up till
movies, TV shows.
Yeah, it was up till
into the 90s.
The 90s, because I remember watching WCW, and it was an Owen Hart match, some obscure Owen Hart match, and he was wrestling a guy that had a flamboyant gimmick, and Owen Hart led the crowd in chanting that word. That was okay back then.
Mm-hmm.
At least we moved past that now, right?
You'd like to hope so.
But he's right. Back then, I mean, that was the ultimate insult to everybody back then. So if they'd have found out he really was gay at the time, he kind of quit anyway. But he wouldn't have really had no career at all, to start with. They knew that.
Yeah, the only thing that I knew about him going into this is that he was essentially in the closet when he made the movie, and kind of had to come out afterwards. And he just dropped off the face of the earth from acting, and they found him in Mexico. That's all I know.
Yeah.
If people were even walking around the convention talking about them just randomly finding him in Mexico.
Mm-hmm.
And this was when they were doing the Never Sleep Again documentary, right?
Right.
Yeah, that was why they had to go find him, and which he created a nice little life for himself in Mexico in terms of his art, and he found love, and a husband down there, a partner down there, so. Not that he needed to come back, because they found him and told him about what was going on after they hired a private investigator. He didn't really need to come back. He was living a happy life down there. He just came back to start talking about this and kind of using his platform now.
Yeah,
which it seems like he's done a lot of good using that platform. So, and I mean, he is like a gay pride activist. So his voice is being heard now.
I think I was probably right when I first started blogging that I even picked up on the vibe of Nightmare on Elm Street Part 2, because when I was younger and I watched it, I didn't particularly like it, but I never really picked up on what was going on with it until later on. But it always gets me that movie's the one that everybody kind of throws to the side, because they talk about the first one, they go to the third one and the fourth one and so on. I mean, even on the Blu-ray box set, that one looks the worst out of all of them. You know, I
And
don't
let's
know
face it,
why
it's
that
not the
would be.
worst one in the series.
No.
Not by
I
a
like it
long
more
shot.
now than I
No.
did when I was younger.
When I was younger,
I
it was
mean,
not one of my favorites, but to this day, I still love that pool party scene because
Hmm.
that is like fucking savage Freddy Krueger.
Yeah.
oh
Yeah, when I
yeah.
was
That's some
A
of
lot
like the
of the
best. That's one of
movie
the
is
best
Savage
scenes in
Freddy
the
Krueger.
entire series.
yeah, because like
Mhm.
Freddy's not, playing stuff for laughs at this point still, or at least it doesn't seem like it. And like the two parts I remember when I was a kid more than anything was the school bus scene
Yeah,
and the party scene. I think like any kid that grew up in the '80s probably had a dream at some time or another that Freddy was driving their school bus. I mean, it was a creepy movie, especially for the time because it kind of kept the tone of the first one where things were a little bit more serious than they would be later on.
The way I like to think about it is every franchise has some kind of thing within it somewhere that everybody's like, well, here's the rest of the franchise and here's this. Your Halloween 3, your Friday the 13th Part 5. I usually include Rec 3 in there. I love Rec 3, but it's not anything like the rest of the franchise. And this is Nightmare on Elm Street's one. And in almost every case, you might have a problem with that other movie, but usually it's not bad. It's just different,
right. Yeah, it's not a bad movie. It's a good movie with some bad parts in it and
Mhm.
some genuine things that are probably supposed to be scary that are laugh worthy.
Yeah.
Yes.
But man,
And
it broke my heart when he was reading all those comments.
Oh yeah. Oh
Like
yeah.
literally, man, it hurt me that he had to go and find that shit on the internet.
hmm
Earlier today, I was looking on Twitter and somebody. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. You delay.
no,
No, that's fine.
I was just talking about like the whole movie, basically just leads up to this whole big confrontation with the writer of the movie, which I'm sure we'll get into. But before
Yeah.
we go to that point, you can go ahead with what you were going with there.
Oh, I was just going to say that I saw on Twitter today. I've been trying to limit it a bit because Twitter.
Fuck.
But a woman posted that she had literally posted a picture of she had done like a painting of the Crab Nebula. It's like this really amazing like galactic painting she'd done. It took her like months. And she posted a collection of the things she'd been told about. And it's just like the most vitriolic, visceral, violent bullshit that anybody could ever give. And we all know why it is. It's because it's anonymous. No one has to find you. No one can ever tell you what it is. So you feel like you can say anything you want to. You're a horrible person still, even if no one knows who you are. But that's why it happens. And it shouldn't happen.
I would agree.
What was I going to say? Oh, the other thing I found interesting about it is in the 4 years since we stopped, we've had this conversation before about everybody's least favorite 2-word phrase that's come into being, which is elevated horror.
I had to say it.
And I know I just had to say it once and say it again because it hurts me. But the only thing I'm going to say about that here, because I can go in a rant forever, is I don't remember what his name is, but the professor who talks in the movie about the nature of the movie and talks to this class about the things he pulls out of the movie and why they think certain ways about it. You would never find a critic anywhere who would put this movie under those 2 words. And yet it is something that warrants discussion because all horror does. And it shows that by having that honest discussion that gets into the symbolism and the way you understand kind of the gender roles in the movie. I like that they kind of present that in a positive way that kind of sheds a light on something that a lot of people have this negative opinion of in terms of this movie.
So do we ever figure out if was the writer a gay guy or did he just write that stuff in there like that?
Yeah, that's my one big issue with the movie, really. But
like he went for closure, but I don't feel like he really got it.
That's exactly. I feel like he implies in what he's talking to him that he got closure, and I don't deny. Given I'm not going to go into spoiler detail or anything, but the scene with Jack Shoulder, the next day after they all have dinner, and the scene where they're all like having a bar, you can tell that he's not wrong in that he says to the writer, everybody always says it's my problem. It's just me that's seeing it. And you can see it in those scenes that they're basically telling him that. So he's not wrong there, but I don't see him redeeming himself. He's not sitting there going, yes, I did it, I was wrong. No, hell no.
Well, yeah, when he said, the script literally said, I danced and backed myself up and closed the drawer with my ass. Because he said, well, you're the one that did the dance. And it's like, well, it was written that way.
Do you remember watching Never Sleep Again?
It's been a while. My wife watches it.
Me too, but I do remember. Watched it.
Oh, I was going to say, my wife watches it all the time.
In the Nightmare on Elm Street 2 part of it, they get into it, of course, because that's why he says in the movie, that's the whole reason why he agreed to do it, was so that he could have a confrontation with him, because he still blamed him for it. And they talk about it quite a bit. And whenever they bring it up with him, he's very cagey in the original documentary. He's very, I didn't think I wrote it that way. And then by the end of it, he's like, maybe I did think I wrote it that way in the Never Sleep Again documentary. And it's just like, you can just tell he doesn't have that vibe. My wife was like in and out, taking a nap while we were watching it. And she looks up and sees him on the screen and goes, wow, he looks like a douche. And I went, yeah, pretty much.
He is, yeah. But at least he gave him a sincere apology. But the whole start of that conversation, he was a fucking prick.
Oh yeah.
And I think that's when I jumped in that group chat. I was like, this guy fucking sucks.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I guess, like, even if he didn't really get closure in it, maybe he felt like he had to say he did just because it's a good way to end the documentary.
That's kind of what I was feeling, and that kind of bugged me. I was like, because then I felt weird about what he was talking about at the end, like, that he's become an activist. And he has become an activist, and he has done a lot of good. But I'm looking at that, and then immediately in my head, I'm still thinking, because it just happened. I'm like, but you didn't get closure. There's no way that interview that you showed us gave you closure.
No, not unless there was something like off camera.
Well, I don't know how I feel about the director.
Yeah, he does not come off well. And I like Alone in the Dark, but that's.
I mean, he don't know what it's like to deal with what that guy dealt with, and he just sitting there telling him, just get over it, let it go.
Mm-hmm. It's the same kind of thing. Again, he talks in that movie. The director's basically like saying, "I didn't see it when I made it," just like he does within this documentary. And
so, I mean,
that's
he
great.
A lot about
that's not what's his question here.
The bar was a gay bar, right?
Yeah.
Well, he did say he scouted it during the day.
Yeah.
So they would have been close.
The one actor that played like his friend in the movie was kind of like don't play dumb or whatever.
Robert Rossler. Yeah.
No, I will say it was very enjoyable to see like them meeting for the first time in a long time. For the first reunion.
Mm-hmm.
But it kind of
anniversary, I think.
Yeah, and it kind of bummed me out that like in none of those things they never put Robert Englund anywhere near the reunions. He's always in a room on his own. And I know he generates a way bigger crowd than all of them together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But they could at least do one large room with all of them.
Oh, sure.
For any, not just that, but any convention. That's a pet peeve of mine at conventions.
I've seen it done sometimes. It depends on the convention and how big the room is that they want to put them in, but it is way rarer than it should be.
Well, I think it was Days of the Dead. Robert and Heather Langenkamp were in one room. And it was, we're talking an enormous fucking room. The room itself was bigger, I think, than the main room with all of the guests. Not necessarily the vendors, but all the guests. And it did not need to be. They could have halved that very easily.
Of course, I guess you don't. Nightmare people, they could have filled it up.
Yeah, but and they did. There was a Nightmare on Elm Street 4 Dream Master reunion. The only person that wasn't there was Tuesday night, and I was really bummed out about that.
Yeah, she was supposed to come to one of the ones I went to. Eventually, she did make it to a different one, but there was issues because I think she doesn't like planes, and so she lives on the West Coast. Convention was on the East Coast, so she couldn't get a train to the basically for one of the ones I was at.
She was in
Yeah.
Pittsburgh, and I couldn't go.
Mhm.
You know,
I could not get out of work.
Completely side thing. It ain't got nothing to do with anything else. But I believe she's probably the reason I'm not as big on part 4 as I am part 3.
Oh man, I tried to buy that
Because
that
I don't
12-inch
like
single she
recasting
did with the
anyway.
single from the movie. I serenade my wife every time we watch it.
Oh, yeah.
She's not a fan.
Is this documentary like? I remember when they were crowdfunding for this documentary.
Mhm.
Is this like exclusive to Shudder?
I think for streaming, I don't know if they're gonna.
Yeah.
I think they should release it on physical.
Yeah.
I'd probably pick
I
a
think
copy up.
I think the people that donated got like a physical copy of it.
I'm sure they did.
Yeah, but they sometimes still only do that as a special limited thing because you gave them money.
Right.
But I agree with you. I mean, if they've put this is not to say that any of the other stuff they put out physically that are Shudder exclusive are bad, but if they put out things, like Revenge, Prevenge, Bore, etc., and they're Shudder exclusive, they probably could have worked out a deal where they could put that out too. Getting it into Walmart, that might have been a bigger question, but yeah.
Hey, maybe if they ever do another, when they do the 4K of the Nightmare on Elm Street series, because eventually they're probably going to do that. Maybe they could work out a deal to throw it on with that.
Oh, probably. That's where a lot of these kind of documentaries end up.
That's a series that needs a 4K restoration.
Certain elements of it.
At this point, I would take a 4K Blu-ray restoration because the Blu-ray set doesn't even look that great.
No, it don't. And 2 looks worse than all the rest of them.
Because it probably at the time didn't get any love.
No.
Warner Brothers has a habit of that kind of thing. That's one thing I saw earlier. They announced Archive is doing a 4-pack Blu-ray and the Body Snatchers remake from like the 90s, the Hung Wolfen, and I want to say Bad Moon. And I looked at that and I was like, please tell me you're putting those on separate discs or something.
They will be.
If you literally just took those 4 movies, crammed them all, give them to Shout Factory or something.
Crammed them all into one Blu-ray. No special features.
No. What it'll be like the old Final Destination release. It'll be like probably there'll be like 4 slots in there for 4 discs, I imagine.
Probably. But that being said, I really don't expect them to put any special features on it. Why would they?
I've got all those solo, and of course, offhand, I don't remember any of the extras on them because I don't have them like handy. But if they had any previously, I'm sure it's just the same release, just shoved in the same box.
Sure.
Sure,
because they love Warner Brothers loves that.
But I've never seen them do that with archive movies, though.
Yeah, it's a new thing, I guess.
Yeah, but they usually look pretty good. And one thing I know, some people worry about the archives because they are kind of like a replicate on demand type thing.
Mm-hmm.
But theirs are pressed. They are pressed. They're not BDRs.
Mm-hmm.
So that helps. Unless these are BDR, unless they're starting that. They wasn't.
I will say one thing about Shudder in general is they do have like a cottage industry of collecting these documentaries about people, because they have the Mark Patton one, they have the Tom Savini one. I haven't watched it yet, but they have the Kane Hodder one. I've read his biography. I imagine it's very similar.
It's good.
Yeah.
Fuck him.
So they do tend to do that a lot. What'd you say?
I said fuck him.
Have you read the biography?
No. You want to know why? Because every time I meet him, he's a fucking asshole to me. For no reason at all, other than just to be a fucking asshole. And I bought his biography. Like, I fucking paid for the book, and then I paid for him to sign it, and he was still a dick to me.
I'm sure we covered this at some time or another.
I know we talked about it on the original Exorcast show with Eli and I, but so it was a horror hound. First time I met him, had him sign it. Everything was cool. And then Eli made his way down. My wife and I moved out of the way, and he was signing Eli's stuff. And I'm just sitting there, like, staring off into space. I was looking at a vendor's shelf over here, like, to the left, and he's right here. And he's like, "Hey, man, what's your fucking problem?" I'm like, I'm like, he can't be talking to me, so I didn't even answer him because there's no fucking way he's talking to me. I'm not even looking at this bastard. So he's like, "I said, what's your fucking problem?" And then Morgan, my wife, was like, "He's talking to you." And I'm like, "Excuse me?" He's like, "You're giving me the stink eye like I fucked your wife." I was like, "Buddy, I wasn't even looking at you." Meanwhile, he's got this big fucking Juggalo ICP chain around his neck and his fucking ICP hockey jersey. And he's like, "Well, you better just watch what you're doing." And I'm like, "What the fuck ever, man." He's like, "You need something signed?" And I said, "No, unfortunately, you already did it for me. I already paid you the $25. So we left. A whole nother convention. And this convention, it's just, that same night, he apparently got pissed off and ripped the bathroom door off one of the stalls. So I don't know if he was mad at me or not.
Maybe he's coked out.
So a whole nother convention, like 2 years later, it was just Dan's Commander and his sister Megan and Morgan and I. And that's when I got the book signed. And he was a dick to me again. He was selling those fucking machetes. And he just stared at me, and he started slamming that machete in my direction down the table, ripped the tablecloth, burst an ink pen, and went flying through the air. And the ink got on the writer of the book, or whoever did the book with him, because he signed it too. And then he signed my shit and slid it to me, and I left. So we're standing and like trying to figure out at the end of the night where to go to eat and have dinner, and there's a UFC fight on in the prelims in the lobby on the TVs. And he said, they're like, "Don't turn around." I'm like, "Why not?" They're like, "Kane Hodder's right behind you." So I turn around, obviously, and he bumps into me and turns around. And he just kind of fucking stared at me, and I was like, "Oh, that's fucking great." And he just walked away.
Okay, I heard something that time. So, repeat. You turned around and what?
Yeah, I said you turned around and you lost yourself.
I turned around, and he turned around at the same time and knocked into me, because he's a big fucking guy. And then he just kind of looked down at me and stared at me, and I was like, "Well, that's fucking great." And I turned around, and we just left.
You think he remembers you from the previous convention?
I don't know.
Doubtful.
But he was still, regardless, I gave him no reason either time to be an asshole to me, and I was very polite with him until he was an asshole, because I'm a fucking asshole, and we can all agree on that.
What did Vincent say about it?
He laughed. He thought it was hilarious.
Of course he did.
It's so funny. You got this beef with Kane Hodder.
Fuck Kane Hodder.
Got this weird thing with Adam Green where he may or may not have stolen props or whatever the story was with it.
Kane Hodder is the best. He's the best Jason, right? But he's in the worst fucking movies.
Yeah, that's true. That's why I always talk to C.J. Graham when I go to these things, because he's
C.J. Graham was cool. He choked my
Richard Brooker was nice as hell.
He died, right?
Yes, he did. Sadly.
You see, we
nicest
got
one.
like Ryan at the convention we went to, and this was years ago in Nashville. He got the big poster, and he was going to have all the Jasons sign it. Well, he got I think he got Kane Hodder to sign it, and he got C.J. Graham to sign it, and there might have been one more Jason there he got to sign it. But then it come down to the one you just mentioned, which is Richard Brooker or whatever. And he come over there he was even joking around with us when he was at CJ's table. But Ryan decided to wait about having him sign it. And then the next year, he died.
Happened. Sad.
I waited to meet Roddy Piper, and he died the next year too. So it's not good to wait.
Yeah. All right, so let's get back to this doc. Let's finish this up.
Yes.
We kind of got off track.
Yeah.
As we tend to do.
Sidetrack everybody. Yes, but we'll get back on. So, but yeah, in general, I mean, I guess I'll go first. I very much like it. The ending not really kind of coming to what he says it does in the movie. That's about the biggest thing that hurts it in my eyes. I mean, I'm giving it a 4 because of that pretty much. Everything else is really good. It's definitely worth a watch. It puts the movie itself as already, I thought it was great to begin with, but it puts it in a whole new light. It puts him in a fantastic light, shows him to be the nice guy that I already knew he was from meeting him, and it's definitely worthwhile.
I agree.
Yeah.
I really liked it. Shut up, Chuck. Sorry.
That's the first one.
3 episodes in. I really enjoyed it. It was, I don't know what I was expecting, but I liked it a lot more than whatever it was that I was expecting. And it gave me a whole new light on Mark Patton, not as an actor, but as a person. And he's lived one hell of a cool life with many, many downs, many ups. I don't personally think he got the closure he desperately wanted or needed, but I'm glad he got something. And I think anybody that has Shudder absolutely should watch this if you're a fan of the series.
To be clear, if he thinks he got the closure he wanted honestly, then he got the closure he wanted honestly.
Sure.
I'm just going from what I saw. Exactly. Yeah.
I wouldn't be okay with that.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Okay.
Yeah. I agree with everything you guys said. I mean, outside of like, I feel like the ending kind of builds you up, and then it just kind of frayways away there. But besides that, I liked it. I think it's worth watching, and would go good with a release of part 2 if you put them together.
Hell yeah.
Sure.
But like I said, though, outside just the ending, that I don't know, if he got satisfied with it, then I guess we could be satisfied with it. But outside of that, I liked everything, and it was informative. And I always like, like dealing with the stuff like this, like ever since it come out that it was like a gay movie, or whatever, and everybody started talking about it. I think it's good to hear from the stars, point of view of it and everything, because even though we touched on it in, Never Sleep Again, I feel like this comes more full circle and definitely gives you more information. You learn more about him, which is always good.
It gives you plenty of context in terms of not just the movie, but when it was released and the culture of the world at the time. And that's important.
Yes. So I think it's fair to say we all enjoyed it.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
Well, it's definitely something we all recommend watching on Shudder because, I mean, Shudder's fucking cheap, and even if you don't want to do it, you can do like Newsfinder here and sign up for multiple trials.
Yeah, for the record, I have full regular Shudder now because VRV over time has basically dropped everything that was interesting. They dropped, I think, Funimation. They dropped Shudder. They dropped a whole bunch of stuff. So I'm like, well, I didn't use half the stuff anyway, so I'll spend the $5. So now I just have regular Shudder.
Most times, if you buy like a Shudder title, you get a 30-day trial anyway if you buy one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sitting on like 5 or 6 of them, although I do have the regular. I think I may be at the end of a trial right now, but
So Chuck's going to make a new email soon.
Hang on to it.
Burners.
There's other apps out there that we'll talk about another day that might be more worth some people's while.
Well, you definitely need to hang on to the Shudder because we're probably going to review a lot of Shudder originals on the show.
Mm-hmm.
I own a bunch of Shudder originals.
We'll be using other things too, but yeah.
Sure, but it's easy to get to, and it's something that we can all watch. Whereas on the previous podcast, sometimes it was just Chuck and I that had seen something because we had got screeners of it in, and James was just chiming in like, "Oh, that sounds pretty good."
Yeah, basically. It was rare, but it happened.
So, well, I guess that's the end of this episode. Like I said, we're trying to keep them a little bit shorter, a little more to the point, and not wander off as much. So I think
I can't ramble.
Successful.
Yeah, it was fairly successful. So thanks for watching, and we're literally going to turn around and film the next episode.